Moving along.
I have a follow-up on this.
Oh wait.
Thanks for
Oh wait,
your
I should have kept going. There's a follow up to that other question.
introduction to the program, and really exciting to learn about the new steps that TriMet is taking
Why are they looking
with
into
a
the
lot of
camera?
different, and I hesitate to call it, law enforcement, but with a lot of different security measures. I think that over the last few years especially, people have become more cognizant of implicit bias and of differing demographics and different outcomes based on demographics that people interacted with. And I wondered if, that those are metrics that you're paying attention to, and how you're kind of making sure that the equity goals for the organization.
Equity, fucking equity. Stop talking nonsense. Every time I hear that word, I want to throw something at the computer screen, because there is no equity anywhere in this country. It doesn't exist. There's no equity. And so when they talk about it, they're liars. They're throwing out buzzwords. It's manufacturing consent. These are career technocrats and bureaucrats fucking with your mind.
Are met with
And
an
why are you looking in the
increase
camera?
or changing landscape of security.
Yeah, and I think a large part of this, we've really taken advantage of our Reimagine process to kind of help understand what the needs of our community are. We have community members at the table, which again, Dr. Lewis leads a discussion alongside myself and others, just to kind of continue to hear from the community.
Yeah, sure.
I think that
we're going to hear from the community, Rippy.
When you think about the safety response team, that's a very different way of approaching public safety at TriMet in and of itself. And it kind of represents some of that I mentioned earlier, but that kind of reimagining process of how we can actually establish better outcomes for particularly the most vulnerable.
They're leaving the most vulnerable in the ditch. We all know that. You're leaving them in the ditch, so shut the fuck up. Okay, stop whining. Stop it. The most vulnerable people you're leaving in the ditch, and that's TriMet policy.
Ridership and most diverse populations. The safety response team is very reflective of the community that they serve.
Oh, they have a politically correct safety response. They have all the black face, Asian faces, of Hispanic face. So that this is very big for these Democrats. This idea that somehow, if you put all these faces in there, that everything's going to be okay. Well, I've got news for you. It's not okay. That's not going to change anything.
And they're also, their job is not to do code enforcement per se, so they don't even go
per se. What do you mean per se? You mean they can do code? Oh, wait a minute. So he's saying they are code enforcers. He otherwise he would have said their job is not to do code enforcement. So so they're fair inspectors. I see. He's changed the name of the fair inspectors to safety response team. You lying piece of shit.
Into those realms. Their job is really to lend a hand and to be available.
Yeah, you're lying. Presence. They can issue citations. So they are what's called the TriMet swine. Let me show you the TriMet swine. Got a good picture of them here. I should have put this on the. Let me show you. Here they are. TriMet swine. That's the tweet. TriMet swine on the orange. I love this shit, man. So much fun. Don't you wish you had as much fun as I did? Okay.
Identify something that's unsafe, because safety is paramount here at TriMet. They will.
Safety is our priority.
Communicate that and call that in, which I think the community wants. But
the community wants. The community just wants a ride, and you're throwing them in the ditch. Fucking bullshit.
They're not out there to do any code enforcement. And once you get into the code enforcement space, this is where you really need to spend some time.
But they can do code enforcement. He just said they could. So they have that as one of their options. So,
I'm on how you're doing that. to make sure it's equitable. And I say that because we do that activity, and it's necessary activity at TriMet. But that in and of itself we've taken a lot of trainings related to that over the last couple of years, and established a tremendous amount of work along those lines to really make sure that we're approaching that.
Yeah, all this training. We gotta go training. It's all garbage. Okay, we know that. We know it's garbage. Okay, you train them once. You tell them what they need to do, how they need to do it. And if they can't do it, you dump them out the door.
In the right way for our community. But we're really proud of the safety response team because it does represent that kind of different path in terms of how to engage folks in a very non-threatening way.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I would just add to that too that the program within the LRHR department that deals with training has introduced an implicit bias class we are having all of our internal
employees. Bias class. That's working great. I can hear that on the, it really works great. He doesn't do anything, man.
Employees attend, including the frontline staff.
I'm going to try to wrap up this line of questioning, and I'm actually interested perhaps in hearing from some of the board members about how they are approaching this. But I mean, this is a perfect storm. I mean, you're dealing with staff recovery, with ridership recovery, with safety concerns, real, perceived, socially related or not. I mean, in any year, just one of those would be a challenge. And now all three of them.
Yeah, this woman is smart. Whoever that woman is, she's smart.
Are here. How, I mean, and
Margot
one
Norton
never works the other. I mean, if there are...
I never even heard of her, Margot Norton, but notice how the quality of her questions are excellent, are just excellent. She seems to have a grasp of the actual situation.
Isn't reliable service and frequent service, you're not going to get riders back if you get riders back, but the safety...
She gets it. She actually, how does she know all this?
Issues are threatening. It's not going to last. How do you balance these levers? What's your
why is she on the TriMet board? That's the woman that needs to be on the TriMet board. She understands the issue. She's not even on the TriMet board. How does she know this?
How are you going to judge what's working?
As
you focus your resources, how are you going to know what's working? What's your best return? How to keep these levers in balance?
Why?
I mean, that's your job as the governing board, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, their job is to do whatever the general manager tells them. They don't actually govern anything. I would imagine the woman knows that. Maybe she's hinting at them like, why aren't you doing anything, you sock puppets? Why are you all a bunch of sock puppets? Well, come on, sock puppet. We're waiting for an answer.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that this board has been approaching it in a way of dignity and respect, not only toward the public, but also toward the employees as well, to make sure.
Oh, you haven't done shit about shit. What do you mean you're approaching it? You haven't done anything. Nothing. I watch your show.
That everyone is safe and respected in their everyday living and dealing with TriMet. And that's the key, I think, to all of it. When we see the complaints that are going down, and when we see that people are not being treated in a disrespectful way, I think that's the key to it. You know, we want to keep the employees safe, but we want to make sure the public is kept safe as well.
You don't have anybody safe. Okay, nobody. It's very dangerous on the transit. Everybody knows it. You're talking nonsense. I know it.
And I think when we approach it in that manner, I think that makes a huge difference, because we're not a police force. We're not an agency that deals with mental health or drug abuse, but we want to make sure that people are treated with respect, and we try to make sure that we refer them to those.
You don't refer anybody anywhere. God, it's so painful to watch this.
We use those resources that are available to us so that people can get their help that's needed. in those particular situations.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's all you're going to ask. She asked a great question and she got that bullshit answer. That's not a good answer. She asked a great question and you got this nonsense answer. You know, that's to be expected.
If I may add, Thomas Kim here.
Come on, why don't you talk, Ozzy? Let's hear you talk, Ozzy.
As you've noted, it's an unprecedented time here, and I think first and foremost, the most important key part for us has been working with Sam and the rest of the staff so that those 3 or 4 key issues that have come up in the past 2 years are on the forefront of all of our minds as we're discussing any and all policies and resolutions. So the economics related to ridership, as well as the employee issues, retention, hiring issues that we've discussed thus far. I'm so pleased to know that all of our staff, everyone here, as well as those who are not present in this room, are thinking about this, and as we're making any and every decision.
Baloney.
So I think that's been the key for us so far, and knowing that we're in sync as a board and GM and the rest of the staff, so that we all know that
boy, painful.
There might not be the correct, the 100% answer, but there's no wrong answer when all of our hearts are aligned and taking steps forward. Thank you.
Okay, now this is garbage, man, okay? Sorry, it's garbage. We watch your show. We know you don't discuss any of this. It's all capital projects all the time. You don't discuss any of this at your board meetings.
Thank you.
Okay.
A great.
All right, here's Ozzy. Let's see what Ozzy says.
Great question, Commissioner Norton. I simply wanted to acknowledge that it is indeed a perfect storm, but the way I see it, it's the most human storm. We don't have the luxury of isolating one of these issues from another. We don't get to expand the service while ignoring climate change. We don't get to address the worker shortage problem without addressing the humanity that our drivers deserve. We don't get to address the ridership issue with customers without addressing cleanliness and safety on the bus. And I would argue we never really had the luxury of isolating these issues, but
Yeah, he's right. He's right. You don't think about operations at all. In reality, okay, you guys don't. You're a capital projects board.
Now we're in a moment where we all see the matter. We all see a system that needs to be brought back. The riders see it, the public sees it, employers see it, and at least we all know that we don't get to ignore this matter. Something's got to give, and we are having to address this issue in a way that I think brings out the best in us, forces us to get out of our
Ozzy.
silos. And what I appreciate about this moment in time is that I don't think anybody out there is arguing anymore that we have to go back to the way we used to do things because that's what's going to work. At the very least,
we have to go back to the way we used to do things. So that's a very excellent comment. I like that. But they're not going to do it. Okay. What used to happen will never happen again.
we're at that level of clarity. And yes, a lot of things got to get reimagined. And I'm scared and excited, frankly, at us stepping forward into this challenge. Yeah. I don't see us having much of a choice, but luckily, the bones of our system, the bones of our infrastructure, and the region that we're serving are still there. And we still have many.
Yeah, he's right. He's right about that. Give him credit. The bones are still there. You can rebuild the system if you hire your goddamn operators. And to do that, you need to make it much more attractive. And you're not going to do that. So, it's all talk.
Many reasons to get outside and move around. So we're trying to figure out how to match that. I really appreciate the question, but I think it's at the nexus of what we're trying to do together.
Oh, it's so nice, Ozzy.
I want to acknowledge that the federal government has put a great deal of resources into transit all over the country. It's been a great commitment from the...
infrastructure. The ridership has been destroyed, and you're not doing anything about that. The money that the feds gave you all are for just pork barrels.
From the federal government, and that has helped us to maintain service.
It has not! She just lied! It has helped us maintain. You just lied. Oh.
Given the personnel shortages, we've been able to keep buses and trains operating, at least in part because of those funds, and that's enabled us to continue.
What are you talking about because of those funds? Last, that's only 6%. She's just lying too. She's lying.
To focus on essential workers who really have depended on transit service all through the pandemic. So I want to acknowledge that piece of it that's been an important kind of tool for us to keep operating. I think that rebuilding ridership is extremely important.
TRIMET has more money than ever, okay? So they lost the fare revenue, but they got more than the fare revenue from the feds, okay? So they're lying.
Important because that will help with safety. When you have enough people on the bus and on the train, it just is safer. And in fact, the New York Times yesterday, I think, had a front page article on this very subject. And
the New York Times, which we like to call the toilet paper of record because it's garbage. It's garbage. It's 100% propaganda.
And so, to me, all three of these issues are very important, but that's has some primacy to me.
Yeah, sure. Well, whatever.
I'll add to what everyone has said.
Kill them all, driver.
I
kill them all,
think
director.
it is, regardless of the pandemic, I think it was time for the agency to look at a comprehensive service review. The area has changed.
What do you see? How this was planned? See what she just said? They decided somewhere in the past here to redesign your system. Here it comes up again in her mouth.
There are some transit deserts within our region, and increasingly we have to look at the travel patterns of individuals. And so one key ingredient in increasing ridership is making sure that we're taking them where they want to go. And I can assure you that the board is aligned with staff, with the general manager.
Yeah, with the general manager. You're his puppet. We know that. We already know that.
Looking at all possible ways to look at the way we serve particularly our bus service, not to.
I've seen no discussions about the bus service at the board meeting. None. Okay.
Continue ones that are serving the public well, but potentially to reallocate some of the service to areas where people are now migrating to.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what Walker has come up with. You'll find out soon enough. Your service that you had is gone, folks. And they made that decision a long time ago.
Thank you. I think we'll move along now if you will.
All right, I've had enough of this. Okay, well, that's what you expect from these are a bunch of bullshit answers. You don't expect any specifics. Those of us that follow this know that there's nothing actually happening. They can't find operators. It's crazy on the buses. There's no safety team on the buses. So it's mayhem. And you can check my transit feed. You can check my feed, Al, your pastor. You can check Real PDX Scanner, or you can just check my blog where all of this stuff is listed. And you can see for yourself that it's mayhem out there. The transit system has failed you. It's failed. Doesn't even really exist right now. And they didn't say, they try to avoid saying that. They didn't say that. They're papering over all of this with bullshit comments, and it's very distressing. Over and out.